My name is Giselle Johnson, and I never imagined I'd be the woman standing in her own living room, tears burning the back of her eyes, while her husband waved divorce papers in my face like he'd just won a war. I'm 42, a sales manager in Atlanta, Georgia. Down here, the air sticks to your skin, heavy with humidity, as if even the trees want to weigh you down. My life wasn't always chaos. I once believed I had it figured out. Steady career, savings tucked away, a heart that still believed in something real. But that morning shattered all of it. Ryan, my husband, looked me straight in the eye, smirk curling on his lips. "I don't need you anymore." His words didn't just land, they split the ground under me wide open. But the knife cut deeper when he followed with the truth he'd been hiding. "Dad's bank account has 500 million, Giselle. I'm set for life. You were just the ATM until I got it." I felt my stomach twist. I'd seen his selfishness before, in the small ways. A chore dodged here, a sly grin there when he got his way. But this was cruelty dressed in its truest form. He hadn't loved me. He'd staged the role, waiting for his father's death like it was his payday. And in the middle of my grief, because his father had passed just days earlier, a man who had treated me like his own, Ryan turned it into greed. It wasn't just betrayal. It was desecration. Every muscle in me screamed to lash out, to claw back at him, to tell him he was nothing more than a parasite. But a quieter voice broke through. A voice I swore belonged to his father, whispering in my ear, "Stay calm, Giselle. Don't give him the scene he wants." I steadied myself, snatched the papers from Ryan's hand, and signed them right there. "Fine," I told him, my voice calm even as fire raged inside. "File them yourself. Send my things when you're done." Then I walked out, past the polished floors, past the manicured lawn, past the life I thought we'd built together. He believed he'd won. But I knew something he didn't. The 500 million he was clinging to was nothing but smoke. But to explain why I walked out that door without looking back, I need to tell you where it all began. Because I wasn't always this hardened. I wasn't always this jaded. A few years ago, I was a woman happily married to my first husband, a quiet, steady man who built houses with his own hands. We didn't have much, but we were building a dream brick by brick, saving for a home in the Atlanta suburbs. Then one morning the phone rang.
A car accident. A job site.
He didn't survive. The grief was relentless, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't set aside. And when the insurance money came, $500,000, it felt tainted. Blood money. His parents, sweet people in their 70s, told me to keep it. "We don't need it, Giselle. You're young. Start over." I tried to share it with his brother and sister-in-law, but they only accepted a fraction, insisting the rest was mine. So there I was, 39, a widow with $500,000 in the bank. Surrounded by silence I couldn't escape. I poured myself into work, sales calls, presentations, endless client meetings. But the nights crushed me. I'd pour 2 cups of coffee out of habit, then stare at the untouched mug, that ache in my chest reminding me of what I'd lost. I wasn't broke, but I was broken. That was the moment Ryan Carter walked into my life. Ryan was a sales rep for a partner company. He had a laugh that could shake the walls and a charm that covered up the rough edges. He was 43, boyish grin always in play, and we kept bumping into each other at networking events. At a conference over coffee, I cracked open. I told him about the accident, about the loneliness, about how hollow everything felt. Most people would have run from the heaviness. Ryan didn't. He listened. He lightened the air with a joke here, a smile there, enough to make me laugh for the first time in months. "Your husband was lucky to have you," he said softly, his voice touched with sincerity. Then, with a half smile, he added, "I'm terrible at relationships, Giselle. Women leave me faster than a bad Tinder date." He made me laugh, but I caught the shadow in his eyes. Soon we were meeting up outside of work. Dive bars in Midtown. Conversations that stretched from music to childhood scars. Ryan grew up in Atlanta, always overshadowed by his father, a powerful real estate developer who made millions flipping properties. His mother left when Ryan was still a boy, chasing a life of luxury his father refused to fund. It left Ryan scarred, carrying an invisible chip on his shoulder. A need to prove himself, but never quite enough.
I didn't see it then.
But that hunger would define him. One evening, as we strolled the Beltline, I dropped a crumpled receipt. Ryan bent down, scooped it up, shoved it into a wallet already overflowing with scraps. I laughed, teasing him. "You're like a kid, Ryan." He grinned back. "Hey, I'm 43. Thank you very much." Silly as it was, that moment breathed life back into me. For the first time, the hole in my chest didn't feel endless. A year passed. When Ryan told me he had feelings for me, I hesitated. My first husband's memory still clung to me. But deep down, I felt his blessing. I felt him telling me it was time to move forward. So I said yes to Ryan. I ignored the whispers from friends who said it was too soon. Then one night, over greasy barbecue in Decatur, Ryan leaned across the table. His eyes gleamed with impulsive fire. "Giselle," he said, "we're not getting any younger. Why don't we just get married?" When Ryan first asked me to marry him, I laughed. I thought he was joking, playing into that reckless charm of his. But his eyes were steady. He was serious. My gut told me to slow down. Friends had warned me not to rush. But his confidence was intoxicating. I told myself maybe his carefree energy could balance out my constant overthinking. So when I heard myself whisper, "Okay, let's do it," even I was surprised. Then he dropped it. Another revelation, casual as the weather. "Oh, by the way, I live with my dad. He's been sick. Needs help. You cool with that?" I froze. He had mentioned his father before, but not like this. Not living together. Not sick. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" My voice was tight, almost sharp. He shrugged, careless as ever. "Didn't want to scare you off. It's no big deal. Meet him, you'll see." I wasn't thrilled, but I agreed. And that decision changed everything. Walking up to his father's house in suburban Atlanta felt like stepping onto another stage. The place stood tall, 3 stories of red brick, a broad lawn shaded by old oak trees. It wasn't flashy, but it carried weight. The kind of house built on legacy. My stomach twisted. Ryan's father wasn't just anybody. He was a retired real estate developer, a man who had built half the strip malls across Georgia. Meeting him felt like an exam I hadn't studied for. Ryan, as usual, breezed through the front gate like we were arriving at a bar. "Relax, Giselle," he said with that grin. "Dad's gonna love you." Inside, the house smelled of cedar and old books. His father sat waiting in a recliner, pillows tucked behind his back, his body frail, but his eyes alive. "Sorry to meet you like this," he said, voice warm though strained. "I'm not as spry as I used to be." I smiled, hiding my nerves. "It's no trouble. It's great to finally meet you." And just like that, we clicked. He asked about my work. I told him about selling software solutions, how the market was shifting, everything moving to the cloud. Instead of glazing over like most people, his eyes lit up.
"Tough business," he said.
"Are you focusing on integrations or new markets?" I blinked. He understood. We fell into conversation debating strategies like mentor and student. For a while, I forgot this was supposed to be intimidating. Ryan, meanwhile, slumped in the corner, scrolling through his phone, checked out. As we left, Ryan muttered under his breath, "Dad's stingy. Could have built a mansion. Instead, we're stuck in this dump." I turned back. That dump was bigger than any place I'd ever lived. It was solid, dignified, full of history. How could Ryan dismiss it so easily? But I let it go, too caught up in the kindness I'd just felt from his father. A few months later, Ryan and I married, and we moved into his father's house. It made sense. There was room. His father needed help, and Ryan had an idea. He'd quit his job to take care of him full-time. "I've been a lousy son," he told me one night, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Dad's done so much. I've done nothing. I want to step up, be the homemaker." Skepticism burned in me. Ryan was many things, but dependable wasn't one of them. His wallet was still a graveyard of crumpled receipts. Still, I admired the sentiment. "You sure?" I asked. "You won't miss working?" He shook his head. "I'd regret not doing this more. I can always go back later." So I agreed. My salary could cover us. His father managed his own expenses. Ryan could handle the house. At first it worked. I'd come home exhausted from pitching software, and Ryan would have dinner waiting, simple burgers or pasta, but it made the house feel warm, alive. His father would sit at the table, telling stories from his real estate days. Like the time he turned a rundown lot into a community center still standing in downtown Atlanta. He wasn't just a businessman.
He cared. He gave.
He mentored. And I respected him more with every conversation. Sometimes he'd look at me with a half smile. "You've got a good head on your shoulders, Giselle. Don't let my boy drag you down." At the time, I laughed it off. But the cracks showed quickly. Ryan's diligence lasted maybe a month. Then the laziness returned. I'd come home to find him sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone, dishes stacked high in the sink. "Dinner's handled," he'd say, pointing to takeout bags on the counter. I swallowed my frustration, too drained to argue after work. But his father saw it. His face tightened whenever Ryan shirked. One afternoon, he pulled me aside. "I'm sorry, Giselle," he said softly. "I thought marriage might straighten him out. He's always been careless." I forced a smile. "It's fine." But inside, I knew it wasn't. I was starting to see the truth. And then, the betrayal deepened. I noticed money missing from my account. I'd given Ryan access for emergencies, trusting him. That trust vanished the moment I pulled into the driveway and saw it, a vintage Mustang gleaming in the sun. "Whose car is that?" My voice was sharp. Ryan didn't even flinch. He sat in the living room polishing a set of new golf clubs. "Mine," he said, casual as ever. "You got your fancy bathroom from Dad. I deserve something too." I froze. The bathroom hadn't been a luxury. His father had overheard me mention a leaky faucet. He'd insisted on a full renovation, walk-in shower, accessible fixtures, things that helped to move around the house. It was practical. It was needed. Ryan's car? That was $30,000 of my money.
Gone.
Later that night, I checked my bank account. In 1 month, he had blown nearly $50,000. The car, the clubs, designer clothes, extravagant nonsense. All of it that I was livid. Not just at the money, but at the arrogance. At the way he felt entitled to my savings like it was his birthright. I slammed the bank statement on the table, the numbers glaring back at me like a wound. "You can't just take my savings, Ryan." He barely looked up.
Shrugged.
"Dad's loaded. Once he's gone, we'll be set. What's the big deal?" I felt sick. He was already counting down his father's days, treating death like a jackpot waiting to drop. That was the moment I wanted to walk away. But when I looked at his father, frail, gentle, still so kind, I couldn't abandon him to Ryan's greed.
Not yet.
The house that once felt warm began to suffocate me. Coming home from grueling days at the office, hours of pitching to clients who wanted miracles on a shoestring, I'd walk into chaos. Ryan on the couch, empty takeout boxes piled around him, the glow of a TV washing over his face. The silence between us was sharp, like glass underfoot. He claimed he was taking care of Dad. But the truth stared me in the face. He had hired a caregiver, someone else doing the work, while he lived off my money and his excuses. One evening, I broke. The kitchen sink overflowed with dishes, the smell of stale food in the air. "Ryan, what does being a homemaker even mean to you?" My voice cracked with frustration. He rolled his eyes. "Relax, Giselle. I've got Dad covered. You're always so uptight." Uptight. That word stung. I was breaking my back to keep us afloat while he treated my savings like a playground. Then I found it another $10,000 gone. A high-end watch. I confronted him, anger trembling in my voice. "You're burning through my savings like it's nothing. This ends now." His response? A smirk. "Dad listens to you. Fixes the house for you. Why can't I have a little fun? His money's coming our way soon enough." A A chill ran through me. He wasn't careless anymore. He was calculating, waiting for his father's death like a predator waits for blood. That night, I locked him out of my accounts. Took back my card. He didn't flinch. Whatever. You'll see, Giselle. I'm gonna be set. His confidence crawled under my skin, but I didn't argue. I couldn't shake the image of his father, kind, generous, being reduced to a payout in Ryan's eyes. I thought about leaving, about packing up my life and starting fresh. But every time I looked at my father-in-law, I stayed. He deserved better than being left with someone who saw him as a check to be cashed. In those dark days, his father and I grew close. He'd call me into his study, a warm space lined with photographs, community centers, parks, places he had built not for profit, but for people. Giselle, you're too good for this, he'd tell me, voice steady but heavy. I'm sorry Ryan's putting you through it. I'd brush it off, not wanting him to carry guilt.
But he saw through me.
One afternoon, he shared his proudest failure, pouring millions into a community center in East Atlanta. It didn't work out, he chuckled. Lost a fortune. But I'd do it again. It was for something bigger than me. I saw then the truth. He wasn't stingy, as Ryan claimed. He was careful. Intentional. He spent on things that mattered. When I once mentioned our creaky back porch, he didn't just patch it. He rebuilt it. Added a ramp for his wheelchair. Replaced the decking. Turned the space into a retreat. Helps me and you get to enjoy it too, he said with a wink. Ryan's reaction was explosive. Why's Dad spending all this money on you? He slammed a beer bottle on the counter, rage in his voice. I asked for a new TV, he said no. You get a whole damn porch. I tried to explain it wasn't for me, it was for his father. But Ryan stormed out, muttering about favoritism. His father overheard. Later, he pulled me aside, sadness clouding his face. Ryan's always been like this, he said quietly. His mother was the same. Spent money like it grew on trees. I tried to teach him value, but it never stuck. His voice carried disappointment, the kind that weighs heavy with years. I wanted to believe I could change Ryan, that he could grow into the man his father hoped for. But deep down, I was starting to see the truth. Some people never change. Then came the moment that would shift everything. One evening, my father-in-law called me into his study, his tone calm, practical. I'm working on my end-of-life plans, he said. Nothing morbid. Just want things in order. Ryan's not reliable. Can you help me? I nodded, honored, but heavy-hearted. We spent hours combing through accounts, properties, debts. That's when I learned the truth Ryan didn't know. His father had put $500 million on the line as collateral for a massive loan tied to his failed community project. If he couldn't repay it, the bank would take everything. He laughed it off, a dreamer until the end. I thought I'd start one more project. But my health's failing. If I don't make it, it's gone. Ryan needs to understand that. I promised him I would, though my chest ached at the thought. After that, Ryan unraveled even faster. He stopped pretending altogether. The caregiver carried the weight while Ryan lounged in the living room, spending recklessly, gadgets, drones, leather jackets. Dad's got millions, he'd say, waving me off when I begged him to slow down. I kept my distance, buried myself in work, clung to my father-in-law's stories, his wisdom, just to keep my sanity. I knew something was coming. I just didn't know when. And then it happened. The day my father-in-law passed felt like the world dimmed. A sudden heart attack, just shy of his 80th birthday. The house, once filled with his laughter, his stories, his warmth, fell silent. Hollow. I sat alone in the living room, my eyes locked on the mantel. Photographs lined the shelf, fragments of a life larger than money. There he was, cutting the ribbon at a community center, his smile bright and boyish, like a man who had just won the lottery. My chest ached. The loss was sharp, but what cut even deeper was the bond we'd built in such a short time. He hadn't just been my father-in-law. He'd been a mentor, a friend, someone who looked at me and saw me, not just Ryan's wife, but Giselle. I was still drowning in that grief when Ryan walked in. His face lit up, but not with sorrow, with greed. His eyes gleamed like he'd just hit the jackpot. "Giselle, we need to talk," he said, excitement dripping from his voice. I braced myself, foolishly hoping for vulnerability, maybe even a rare crack in his armor. Instead, he slapped a stack of papers on the table and grinned like a wolf. "Let's get divorced." The words sliced through me. My breath caught, my throat tightening. "What?" I whispered. Ryan didn't hesitate. I checked Dad's account. 500 million, Giselle. I'm set for life. I don't need you anymore. You were just the ATM while I waited. My blood froze. I'd always known Ryan was selfish, but this was another level. He stood there, waving divorce papers like a trophy, gloating about how he had played me, married me just to ride out his waiting period until the supposed inheritance came through. And the way he spoke about his father, like he was nothing more than a bridge to wealth, made my stomach twist. I thought of all those times his dad had apologized for him, the hope he carried that Ryan would someday grow up. And now here was the truth, ugly and undeniable. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash something to make him feel even a fraction of the betrayal he had handed me. My fists clenched so hard my nails cut into my palms. But then, like a whisper carried through the stillness, I felt my father-in-law's voice.
"Calm. Steady."
"Stay steady, Giselle." I drew in a sharp breath, looked Ryan dead in the eye. "Give me the papers." He smirked, smug, certain he'd won. He handed them over like he was dealing cards. I signed them right then, my hand trembling but my resolve iron. "File them yourself," I said, tossing them back. "Send my things when you're done." And then I walked, out past the towering oaks, past the house where I had tried to build a life. My heart pounded with anger and something else, relief. As I drove away, a laugh bubbled up, bitter, sharp, unexpected. Ryan thought he was about to live like a king, but he had no idea what storm was waiting for him. That 500 million he was banking on? It wasn't what he thought. I knew the truth. And soon he would too. A few days later, holed up in a small hotel near downtown Atlanta, I sat scrolling through condo listings, trying to imagine a life that was mine again. My phone buzzed. Ryan's name lit up the screen. I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity got the better of me. "Hello," I answered, voice flat. His reply wasn't calm. It was a hurricane. "Giselle, what the hell did you do?" His voice was wild, cracking with panic. I pulled the phone back from my ear as he shouted. Words tumbled out in gasps. I let him burn through the storm before I spoke. "Calm down, Ryan. Tell me what's going on." "I went to the bank," he choked out. "Tried to pull money from Dad's account. They said it's locked." "Giselle, there's 500 million in there. What's happening?" Desperation dripped from every word. I almost laughed. Almost. But I kept my voice steady. "You didn't know, did you?" I said, leaning back against the headboard, my voice cool. "Your dad never told you because you never cared to ask. That 500 million? It's collateral. You can't touch it." "Collateral?" His voice sputtered, confused. "What does that even mean?" I took a breath, remembering the hours I'd spent beside his father, listening, planning. Your dad poured everything into that community center in East Atlanta. He wanted to give kids a safe place to learn, to grow. But it failed. He borrowed $500 million, using his savings as collateral. When his health declined, he couldn't launch another project to pay it back. The bank gave him a 2-year grace period. That time's over. "The money's gone, Ryan. All of it." Silence. Heavy.
Crushing.
Then his voice cracked into a whisper. "You're saying there's nothing? 500 million, just gone?" I nodded, even though he couldn't see. "There's another account. $75,000. That's what your father left you. That's your inheritance." The silence stretched until it broke. 75,000. His voice trembled. "I thought I already spent everything I had. Giselle, I thought I'd get millions. I'm broke." I should have felt sorry for him. But instead, I felt the quiet burn of vindication. "You spent your money. You spent mine," I said, my voice steady. You assumed you'd hit the jackpot, but you never listened. You never even talked to your dad about his plans. You only saw dollar signs. He started to stammer, begged me to help. Please, Giselle. Pretend the divorce never happened. You've got savings, a good job. I've got nothing. I'm 43, unemployed. Barely enough to get by. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see. You made your choices, Ryan. You don't get to lean on me anymore. Figure it out. And I hung up. My heart pounded, but lighter now, freer than it had been in years. He did send me $35,000, half his inheritance, maybe because fighting over it felt like more trouble than it was worth. I heard through mutual friends that he crawled back into sales. But without his fantasy fortune to prop him up, he crumbled. Got chewed out by bosses half his age. Quit after a month. Now he scrapes by as a part-time delivery driver, his savings slipping away with each bad choice. I don't wish him ill, but his burdens aren't mine anymore. As for me, I found a small condo in Midtown, a balcony with a view of the Atlanta skyline. I deposited that $35,000, not to spend, but to keep. A reminder of my father-in-law, his heart, his vision, his belief that life should be spent building something that matters. Every time I see that account, I feel him there, cheering me on, whispering to keep moving forward. My days are long again, pitching software, closing deals. But now, when I walk through the door, I'm home. Not a house built on lies, but a place that's mine, filled with my dreams, my future. I'm not the widow lost in grief anymore, not the wife trapped in betrayal.
I'm Giselle.
And I'm building something new one step at a time. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through heartbreak, through betrayal, through the kind of comeback that doesn't just heal you, it makes you alive again. If my story touched something inside you, subscribe, join us. Every story here is about the same fight. Pushing through the mess, finding your strength, and daring to start over. Keep carving your own path. I'll see you in the next chapter.